Everyone, I hope you guys are doing great. This is Steph from the Swiss Wolf. Today, I would like to officially open up the channel and give you a little background information about myself, what I specialize in, and also my current view of Bitcoin and the whole crypto space ahead of the weekly close. We are at a very important moment for this cycle, and the weekly candles are giving us some information that we could use to understand what is likely coming. Because in investments, we never invest with 100% clarity of what is going to come. We don't know for sure. We're basically investing with what is the most likely outcome in the market. I am first and foremost a trader. I have been in finance for about 15 years now, worked for several multinational companies, and started trading in 2017. I have been working on this craft for a very long time, doing lots of analysis, understanding the psychology behind markets, behind the moves, what investors think, and how it's reflected on the charts. And the goal of this channel is basically to share as much information as I can about my knowledge, my view of the charts, what is the most likely outcome, and also prepare for every possible scenario. Because if we only prepare for one side of the market, then we might lose money or have to wait a lot longer if the other move comes that we didn't plan for example. This is why I want to give you my current view of the market, what makes it valid, what invalidates my view, and also what action plans I'm planning on taking if one or the other scenario gets validated. So currently the monthly candle is bearish. We've had 4 months now at the top, which is positive and negative at the same time. It's positive because it shows that bears haven't been able to fully roll over price, just like we had in the previous tops. So this is a very different scenario than we had in our previous cycle tops. And the bearish case is that if we spend too much time ranging at the top, it could be that most investors lose hope and then we just roll over to the downside. The monthly candle still has to close. We still have about 3 weeks before this candle closes. If we close below this wick, it's very bearish for the market. As long as we close within this wick here, it is more neutral than bearish. If we step down to the weekly, we can see that since the bottom of this cycle here, we've had a move up, a retracement that formed in forms of a falling wedge, another move up, falling wedge, and then a move up, and now it's also forming like sort of a falling wedge here. On the weekly, the structure is still bullish. We did break one of the higher lows. So for those who don't know, when the market is bullish, we make higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. And then if we fail to break the high, or if we very shortly break it and then break that level right here, then we're breaking that bullish structure and turning bearish. But just like when we have a breakout of a certain support and resistance, we need at least 2 candles to confirm the breakout. Otherwise, it could just be a fake out and we just fall down below the level again. And with market structure, it's the same thing. We need to break at least 2 levels. So once we would break this level right there, it would be a confirmation of the break of bullish structure and we would be turning bearish. So this level right there is this one. So we broke one level, not with a clear signal because it's mainly wicks that have been breaking it. And this is that second level that, if broken on the weekly, turns out to be a bearish structure. So this weekly candle is very important. The support that we need to hold is around here, which is that structural level. And that is a very strong support at 100,000. As long as we are within 100 and 115,000, we are basically neutral. The overall high time frame is very bullish, of course, but we need to turn bullish again on the lower time frames to continue that high time frame structure. And you can see that on the weekly, this higher low here failed to make a clear higher high. And then it got broken with the wicks, never with a full body candle. And this candle here, that weekly candle that is about to close in 10 hours, is finding support on that exact same level. The two things that would make it very bullish is if we close above this level, which is a strong support, and if we don't break that wick right there, because that means that they're weak break of structures. They're not strong ones. If we would like to see a strong break below that confirms that bearishness, it's candles like these, where it's very hard to think otherwise, because if you see those candles here, as long as it's within the wicks, it's pretty bullish, but when you have strong breaks, it's very clear that the bearish sentiment is taking over. And currently we're not seeing this at this level right there. So if I remove these lines just for some clarity and come down to the daily time frame, on the daily we are bearish because we broke two structural levels, and to become bullish again we need to break two structural levels to the upside again. So this is one of them, where we started from there, moved down, made a new low, and then this was the previous lower high basically. So to become bullish on Bitcoin on the daily, we need to break this 115,000. And to confirm the bearishness, we need to close below this level. We have been finding very strong support around the 100,000, which is very positive for the market. And we have a double bottom, which is one of my favorite formations. So basically double bottom is when you fall down, retrace, fall down again to the same level, and retrace to that resistance right there. What we need for this double bottom to be valid is for the neckline to break. The neckline is that resistance right there. Once we break above, we could have a small retest and then continuation. So on the 4-hour time frame, this would be the first confirmation that this support is valid and that it's more likely going to hold than fall lower. And then on the daily, once we break this level right there, then that would tell us that we are going to have more likelihood going up than down. And this will also be reflected in the weekly. So today's candle is very important. If we close strongly bearish below 100,000, below that wick here that's at the bottom, it's a clear break of structure. Can it reverse next week? Yes, it could. But if this happens, this is the first very bearish signal and the first time this whole cycle that we have such a structural break happening, because we've always stayed within the wicks and the higher highs, higher lows. You can see that we never had two breaks. Here we had one, but then the second one was right here below. So it wasn't very close to this level. But here, because price has been compressing and making smaller moves, the second one is way closer. So if we break below this level, it is going to be bearish. And in these cases, it's important to start hedging your portfolio, because we all invest to make money. We all invest with an expectation of the market taking a certain turn, but we also have to be prepared for the other side to happen. What if it actually falls down? And there is a way to hedge in crypto. It's by using options. I also launched my own private community where I will break down things more in detail, give really detailed analysis on what's happening on a day-to-day. And also, if I start hedging, I also explain exactly what options are, how to do it, so that whatever happens, if it turns out bullish, we make profit on the way up. And if it turns out bearish, we make money on the way down that we can reinvest lower and basically lower all of our average buy prices. So if you want more direct answers, access to a community where we share our thoughts, our strategies, and clear level-headed analysis, you can join. I'll drop the link below to my website. Everything is still very new, so I'm still building everything and making sure that it's really a place where investors that want to make money in these difficult markets can find a clear strategy to know when to make money on the way up or money on the way down. Because now that institutions are on board, now that the big players are at the table, the rules have changed, and we have to make sure to protect ourselves in case a bearish outcome comes out. But even if I'm talking about the bearish scenario, my overall expectation is very bullish. I'm still very confident in the structure of the market that it's holding. And there are a few other things that I will share with you very shortly that show that there is more likelihood that we go up instead of going down. And I've seen a lot of talks on social media about alt season. Alt season is not going to happen. Alts are dead. It's over. Just sell your portfolio. We're out of the market. But actually, when looking at Bitcoin dominance, you can see that we have broken out of this rising wedge for the first time in this whole cycle. And we have been retracing in a very interesting candle formation. So it's mainly dojis. This was the huge liquidation event that we had 2 weeks ago, where a lot of alts had massive liquidations. But since then, we've been slowly creeping up. And usually what this leads to is something like this. These are a little bit different because they're at the all-time high. Well, all-time high in this cycle. And after we broke out, we're just slowly retracing up. And the most likely outcome when we see something like this forming in the chart is to the downside. So even though there is a lot of uncertainty in the markets, this is showing us that there is confidence still in alt. And every single cycle when a lot of influencers were talking about the lack of confidence in alt season or new regulations coming in, that this is why we wouldn't have any alt season, the market has proven them wrong. And I really believe that this right here is telling us that it's more likely that we have the same outcome than we had in the previous cycles where alt season actually does happen. And we've seen ICP, for example, running this week, basically doing 180%, 160%, 69% move in a single week. And from the bottom right here, we're talking about 260% in 2 weeks, which is huge. Is it a dead count bounce where it's like a mini alt season before everything falls? For that and to know what is more likely, we need to see what happens on Bitcoin. And this is why the strategy is very simple and clear. We have very clear invalidation points. And if these happen, then we just enact on it to make sure that we're protected on the way down, because there is nothing worse than holding your bag in a bear market. I've done it when I started in crypto. This is my third cycle currently, and there is nothing worse because you could have either gotten out at a higher price and have way lower entries, or made profits and reinvested at the bottom. So the next hours are very important for Bitcoin. The CME closed pretty bullish. Well, pretty bullish. More bullish than we are currently seeing on Bitcoin. And we closed right above this wick, right at the wick, which is bullish. The S&P closed with a wick at the bottom. It is not a very bullish candle, but it wouldn't be the first time if you look at previous instances that we have a bearish candle and then the following candle is very bullish. So I'm not too worried about this candle yet. If you look here, also the first week of October, we had a very bearish candle. And then 2 weeks after, we were making a new all-time high. And also looking at Ethereum Bitcoin, which shows us the strength of Ethereum versus Bitcoin, we can see that it's basically forming the same pattern as the Bitcoin dominance chart, which tells us how strong alts are in general. And we're seeing a lot of wicks at the bottom. There is a lot of buying happening on Ethereum. And this move basically is telling us that we had a strong move to the upside in 3 weeks. And then very slow retracement up and down, up and down, and up and down. So the move down is taking long, but is not showing a lot of confidence. There is no clear reversal that is telling us bears took over very quickly and that momentum is kicking in. It's quite the opposite. So until Bitcoin gives us a very clear signal that it either breaks down or above this level here, we're basically in neutral territory. The overall high time frame is bullish, yes, but the lower time frame weekly to down is still bearish. So we need to have that clear signal of Bitcoin telling us, okay, we are going to have a bullish outcome or a bearish outcome. And there is one thing that I've been keeping an eye on that is basically draining that liquidity from the stock markets, from the crypto markets, and has a huge impact. And that is the government shutdown. And Bitcoin is usually an asset that reacts very strongly to liquidity. There is no agreement yet to find a solution to this shutdown, but what it's showing is that liquidity is being drained from the market through that Treasury General account, which is basically a checkings account that is used where the government receives money from taxpayers and things like this. But because the Congress has not approved the budget, most government departments are closed. And that means that that spending that is usually reinvested in private companies is not happening. So there has been an estimate of approximately 800 billion to 1 trillion that has been accumulating in this account. And this was on October 30th. So imagine today, that means that more money has been withdrawn from the market, not reinvested, not spent. And that money is building up on the Federal Reserve account. So once they find an agreement on the budget, this amount will be reinvested and liquidity will come back basically in the markets. That is one catalyst that could definitely turn Bitcoin, because sometimes when the chart is stuck somewhere, it needs a catalyst to make it take a decision where investors front run or would like to be able to buy low so that when price goes higher, they're able to sell. And the markets are forward looking. So as soon as we get close to an agreement, a lot of investors will try to front run the agreement, because right now there is so much uncertainty about that shutdown. Investors are scared. They're thinking that this is going on forever, but it's not the case. And what a lot don't realize is that this shutdown is going to come to an end. There is going to be an agreement, and that money that has been piling up will be sent back to the markets, basically. The other thing that I like to look at is what are whales doing. This chart here from CryptoQuant is showing us how much Bitcoin is left on exchanges, and this reserve has been drying up for a very long time, over a year now, and we're basically hitting lower lows. So that means that while future traders are afraid and taking shorts, spot is being dried up and that supply is drying up. And if you look at the accumulation addresses that have been buying Bitcoin, we're seeing an exponential move right here, like we've never seen previously in any cycle. This is the moving average of that inflow, so not just based on a single day. And you can see that these accumulation addresses are drying up the supply of Bitcoin. So when money flows back and investors start getting interested again in buying Bitcoin, they will have an issue that there is not that much Bitcoin left to be able to be bought. So this will create a supply shock, and usually supply shocks create a massive and very quick move. And you can see that the balance on accumulation addresses has been growing. There is also another one, which is whale addresses. So these are addresses that hold over 1,000 Bitcoin. We did see some selling around here, August this year, but they've stopped in October and started reaccumulating again. So this is giving us a pretty clear signal that whales are accumulating, even though future traders are very bearish on the market. We can see on the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map for the past 30 days, there is an accumulated 10 billion, over 10 billion to be liquidated at 114,000, which is our very crucial level around the 115,000, where it confirms the bullishness. In terms of bearishness, there is 2.7 at 96,000. So the market is mostly bearish. And usually what happens when we see a massive cascade of liquidations, price moves very quickly. So once we have that support confirmed, especially if on the 4-hour we see that break, which would also mean that we're breaking out of that trend line here on the 4 hours. Once we get around this level and all of those shorts get liquidated, it's very likely we break this level on the daily and we become bullish. So Bitcoin is at a very crucial time right now. We need to see that confirmation of a bottom, basically, just like we had around these levels. You can see that as long as we stay above the wick, when we don't break the wicks with the body of a candle, we're still bullish. And this is what's happening right there. If we close above 102,000, basically, this confirms that it's more likely that we turn bullish again on the lower time frames than bearish. If we break those wicks right there, then it's more likely that at least short term we see some more bearishness. But so far, the more likely scenario is that we go to the upside, but we need the chart to tell us that, to show it to us. So keep an eye on the charts for the next days, weeks, because we are at a very crucial time. If you've liked this video, please drop a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments. I'll try to reply to as many people as I can. And if you want to see more and more updates and turn on your notifications like that, I will start posting a lot more updates, analysis, and also some trades from time to time. I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy the weekend. Bye everyone.